Hi, this is the Tempter Podcast, consistently innovate using open source. Your hosts today are Kem Raj and Cliff Brake. Hey Kem, how's it going?
It's going very well. Thanks, Cliff.
So today we want to talk about rolling releases. This is something that we use on several fronts. So maybe Kem, do you want to start off by sharing your thoughts on what is a rolling release?
Yeah, so rolling releases don't have definitive time, so they are like a flowing river, which means that packages keep coming and they keep getting updated and integrated, and your top of the tree is always in a release state. Now, there are different models of release in the past. Most of them were time-based releases, and some of them are just timed releases. There is no fixed time. So initially, you get a release every so many years, and it wasn't fixed when. But then, projects like Ubuntu chose to make time-based releases. So every 6 months, you'll get a release, no matter what. So previously, when people were waiting for features to finish and then make the release, the time was not predictable. But in this case, they made it predictable. They said, if a feature is not ready, it's rolling into the next, time release that they will make. But for this release, they'll cut the release regardless, every 6 months. And that still is a very successful model because it gave you predictability of the releases and made sure that you could rely upon those and plan for those. Um, and rolling release model was being followed by a few projects, and it still probably is deemed to be a developer only model, so to speak. But if you look into some of the Linux distributions like Arch Linux, is a famous one to do a rolling release model. Uh, and Gentoo, which is a source-based distribution, does something similar. Um, they would make releases for staging, ISOs and all, but primarily once you install them, then you really don't do a big bump. For every release, it's continuously being updated all along. And one of our distribution that we rely on, Yoe Distro, does the same, which is based on Yoe project. We track the tip of trunk for all the layers that we use.
Yeah, so we did a podcast earlier on Arch Linux, so we both use that as our developer workstation distro. It works very good for developers. And one other example of a rolling release I think is notable is browsers. So in a browser, you always go forward. As soon as there's a new version, you're encouraged to update immediately. And the reason is browsers are so complex, they're approaching the complexity of an operating system. And, if you want to be on top of security, if you want to work with the latest stuff, you just always move forward. There's not really any such thing, or at least it's not common to have like an LTS browser release. That may be a thing, I don't know, but so that's one area where I think most people accept that going forward, whenever there's a new release available is the way to do it.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And I think the browsers have gone a step ahead. I know like Chromium and its derivatives where they would ask you to update, and if it needs to restart, it would basically reconstruct your sessions on restarting. So it'll download the updates in background and do the pre-work, whatever it can do. So it's trying to make it as seamless as possible. And that's a very good point. And, they have kind of broken free from distribution releases, because previously, you would basically distributions would be the ones who would gate those updates, but browsers have taken it upon themselves and they can update themselves. So that's a really good example for rolling releases.
Sure. So what are and you also described the Yoe distribution, which is the Yocto distribution we work on. And yeah, it's very nice from a developer perspective. You get the latest stuff. And what are some of I guess maybe we'll talk about this later, but why a rolling release? What are the advantages of the rolling release model?
Yeah, I think there are several advantages. In this day and age, everything is connected. That wasn't the case, a few years ago, probably. You basically a lot of embedded devices, edge devices, they were not connected or they had limited connectivity, on-demand connectivity. But now connectivity is default. So you are exposing all those devices onto a lot more, surface area than you had in the past. So security becomes paramount.
Mm-hmm.
And, all open source packages, the processes to fix the security in their latest and greatest releases. And then if they have some sort of like long-term supported releases, they'll backport and things like that. And so I think rolling releases help with that, because the moment you bump up your, release for that particular package, you get a cumulative updates for all those vulnerabilities, right? And the latest versions are available to you, which means you have access to the features. And if you have your distribution, thinking of an edge system, right? You want to keep it up to date. Your delta becomes smaller because you're applying updates for what has changed, not like one big update every 6 months. So it becomes easy to manage your updates. They are easier to process, and you can easily instrument a rolling back mechanism if you need to do that. And it becomes easier to handle these updates in bits and pieces rather than doing one big updates, every once a quarter or a year or whatever cadence you have. So tools is a big advantage. So if you are developing, you get access to latest and greatest tools, and that's basically if you're consuming those rolling releases as a developer. And you always want, the latest of whichever editor you're using. You want latest of any IDE you use or tools you use, compilers, whatnot, right? So it's right there, and it has huge productivity benefits because you may be relying upon or wanting to use this new linting feature that's in the new editor, which is not in the previous one, and you have it right now, without any pain. But whereas for a time base or a long-term supported distribution, you might have to go, deploy certain different mechanisms to get those packages. So it makes it very seamless for you.
Yeah, that's definitely what I've experienced with Arch Linux, and the being able to continuously update and not have to worry about the big updates, is really nice. And very, very occasionally or very rarely will we run into problems, and usually it's just a little problem. We don't have to deal with a big issue all at once.
Yeah.
So most companies and most people can tolerate a little bit of work to update something.
Mm-hmm.
If it's going to take 3 man weeks of effort to update a distro while you're in the middle of all this other stuff, then very rarely can a business afford to block out that chunk of time.
Yeah.
So if you want to keep up to date, it's in your best interest to do it incrementally and continually. one other advantage of doing it that way is you tend to work on the process then, because you're doing it often. You think, oh, I can improve this, or I can automate this, or
Yeah.
so over time your process gets better, and then
Yeah.
everything just keeps flowing better and better and faster and faster.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the every 2 years or 3 years, if it's always a one-off thing, so there's no incentive to automate or improve the process.
Yeah.
One other thing when I think about distros, their role is to deliver applications, software. That's the only purpose of a distro. A distro by itself has no value unless it can deliver applications to you. So the value we get is in the applications and the software the distribution is delivering, and those all have their own life cycles for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
So a distro release is an artificial construct that really isn't based in any reality other than perceived stability. Like, we've tested everything and this is a stable release. But in reality, each of these applications has its own life cycle and its own quality testing on its own. And most of these are getting pretty good. I feel like the distros are adding less and less value as time goes on, because the CI/CD processes at the application development are getting so good
Mm-hmm.
that we
Yeah.
really don't need that as much at the distro level anymore.
I agree with that. Like, so, CI/CD was what I wanted to add to it, because it's what that is behind the success of any rolling based model.
Mm-hmm.
Because any rolling based model, you need like very robust, and as you said, a process for testing and deploying. So given all GitLab, GitHub, and all that kind of tools that are now available to the developers, and access to CI systems are very easy. You would see, like, any project out there, they have some sort of CI nowadays. So I sent patches to several of different kind of packages, small or big, and you'd be surprised to see that they have a very extensive CI system behind it. They're testing it on different platforms, different compilers, different combinations, and they do like a lot of other checks. And sometimes you fix your problem and they find 10 other issues for you to fix before they can accept your change. So the quality of contributions have gone up,
Yeah.
and that makes it easy for a rolling distribution to consume a new version, because the stability of those versions are way better than they used to be in the past. So people were basically, I think there's this long opinion that has been built upon like instability of newer versions, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no, let's not move to that version. I don't know what all it'll bring. But I think that mindset needs to be evaluated now in this modern day and age. The quality of releases have gone significantly up. I recently upgraded GCC, 14 to 15, and there was one bug that
Mm-hmm.
was found, right? And that was like amazing, right?
In
And
the past, it wasn't that way.
it wasn't that way, right? So
Yeah.
you would
Mm-hmm.
basically run all across. And in this, sure, I mean, there are like, new standards they implement, and then they expect you to fix your code, but those are more like cleanups.
Mm-hmm.
But regressions is what, you really worry about, and I didn't find any.
Yeah.
So, the reason to hold on to, your releases is kind of needs to be reevaluated in this modern software development paradigms.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. I just feel like across the board, whether it's my tools, it's applications, libraries, the quality has really, I'd say in the last 5 years, is really gone up.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, I feel it's primarily due to CI/CD.
Mm-hmm.
So one good example of this, if anyone wants to see this in action, is go look at a Zephyr pull request.
Mm-hmm.
and this is not even traditional software. This is deeply embedded software, so it's clear off the beaten path, and they do an amazing amount of automated testing with every pull request, not just releases, but every pull request, every commit. They're running like a dozen or more checks, and it's I feel a good example, and I'll just bring that up as I actually use Zephyr as a rolling OS in my projects. I don't wait for releases. I routinely update to the tip of main, and in particular, one processor we're using, the ESP32. Their developers are very good at supporting their users. They do really good, but everything is moving so fast that if someone runs into a problem, the first question is, have you updated to the latest main? Because there's so many fixes going in, so many improvements, that's just the automatic suggestion. Update to the latest if you're having a problem. So it's not like, oh, go back to stable LTS if you're having a problem. It's go to main if you're having a problem, because we've been fixing things, and chances are your experience will be better.
Yeah. I think if you kind of reevaluate your process, right, that is the key, where you can provide a robust CI for whatever you're building. I think rolling releases is a cakewalk these days.
Yeah. So back to the Yoe distribution. How do you do rolling releases in the Yoe distribution? Can you describe your process a little bit?
Yeah. So I think as we mentioned earlier, it's targeted at edge kind of devices. So we think that it's always good to stay on top of the software, and it's used by small teams. They don't have resources or time to look and go do backports or some sort, but yet they would like to benefit from security fixes because they really need that. There is no two ways about it these days. So that's where Yoe really fits in its philosophy. And we basically have a CI mechanism. If you look in there, we use a CI where you update the layers, and layers update the packages underneath, right? So whatever, along with packages, fixes, security fixes, everything comes in for a package into a layer. And then these layers are combined into the Yoe distro projects. And we use Git submodules. So essentially you update the submodule, and once you push that to the GitHub repo, a CI task kicks in and validates it with the targets of choice that we have. And yes, you may say that it doesn't test my target. You're welcome to run your CI and then report back. And we'll honor that, right? So if it fails on yours, then we'll say, okay, so that needs to be fixed before we accept it. But that's largely the process. It builds, images, like Qt 6 images, our kiosk browser images, and it runs tests on emulator. So it runs, as our builders are ARM64 devices, and it basically builds for an emulator, runs the tests, and if all the tests pass, then you see it in the GitHub pull request and it gets accepted. And then as you collect these over a month, we have a monthly release cycle. And at the end of the month, we basically run a CD process, which is a continuous delivery process, which basically we tag it. And the moment it sees the tag, it triggers the CD process, builds the images, and publishes them onto the GitHub repository. Right now, we only build for a couple of platforms, but it's just horizontally scalable, so we can add more. It's just that we really don't have a need for, and we don't have compute for that, so we don't do it.
Yeah, and as you said, Cam, we're targeting the edge devices, so we're looking at running the latest browser, Qt, OpenCV, and other libraries where people people do need recent software, especially if you're doing data processing, AI, different things like that. You know, you'll want the latest software. Also, we have the latest version of Clang in it, well integrated. You know, Chem has it configured to use Clang where we can. So again, as the world moves more towards AI at the edge, these things are going to be more important. We can't be running on a 3-year-old snapshot.
Yep.
And use the latest AI software and cutting edge stuff.
Yeah. So I think that's one other aspect of it is because, one of our, USP is to have, cutting edge on the edge. And for that, we need cutting edge tools. And, so essentially, we are not shy of using them. We basically try to explore, and we always have fallbacks, but essentially we are going to use the latest and greatest of them, and that is how we perceive that Edge will benefit from systems like generated from your distro.
Sure.
And if you look into, we basically built around concepts. You mentioned about processes, and I'm touching on that quite a bit, but some of these things, like we have a unique concept of projects, and those are those all came along because of we wanted to simplify our process for CD and CI, and we wanted to give a certain level of character to this is a Tegra device, so we build a OpenCV image for it, and this is a Raspberry Pi device, so we build a browser device for this, so and so forth, right? So this is an Odroid device, and whatever it is. So projects are basically giving us that opportunity where then we can pick the projects we want to CI, then we can pick the projects we want to CD. So it becomes easier. Our, if you look into our GitHub Actions scripts, they are very simple as a result.
Yeah, I just actually looked at these the other day. Somebody asked about Yocto CI/CD, so I was looking at the workflows in our repo, and they are very simple. It's amazing what all we can do with. So one thing I will mention is a Yocto build is a big process. You probably can't run that on a GitHub machine. So typically you'll need to have a machine dedicated to that, run the local agent. The local agent gets told by GitHub or Gitea or whatever you're using for your Git repo to start the process, and then it runs on a dedicated machine.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of infrastructure needed, but it's that can even be your workstation. If it can be that simple. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
So any other thoughts on the rolling release for today?
Yeah, no, just start using them more than you did yesterday. So
yeah.
you'll just be in a happier place.
Yes, definitely. So yeah, thanks for listening. If you have any feedback, I know this is a kind of a controversial topic maybe, but if you have opinions, we'd love to hear them. Reach out to us on the TempDir community or email us directly, whatever works for you. Till next time.
Thank you.